The second major application of blockchain is clearing and settlements. Our capital markets rely heavily on the intermediation of clearing houses to facilitate exchange of securities such as stocks, bonds, and many other securities for money. For those of us not really operating in capital markets, it is very hard to know how the market works. So, how exactly does the clearing and settlements process work today? First, as much as capital markets are extremely digitized, at least from what you see in the front end, when you want to make a trade, the underlying process is still highly manual and inefficient. I'll be showing you a model in the next slide. As stated earlier, clearing houses are the major players in capital markets transactions. They act as the intermediary for any sort of trade or securities exchanges. They ensure trust between trading parties. This involves them being liable for any sort of payments if one of the trading parties breaches a contract. Now, this is not a lesson on the operations of capital markets, but I will later on briefly explain how clearing houses absorb the risk of default to ensure trust between trading parties. While clearing houses are really essential in today's markets, transactions through such intermediaries are very slow as they still involve physical emails, texts, manual contracts, and of course, the cost of intermediation never comes cheap, particularly when the intermediary is absorbing some risk. Let's look exactly at the intermediaries chain in our clearing and settlements model. This infographic is courtesy of Accenture, and you can find the link to their research on the resources section of this course. Let's take an example of a security. If an investor would like to buy a stock from a stock owner, this is how the chain would operate. 1. The investor will have to link up to an investment firm. The firm uses brokers licensed to operate in the stock market to make a trade. Then clearinghouses are introduced as the intermediaries for the trade. We then have a custodian bank. Then the centralized transactional ledger where records of stock ownership will be held. Then we have the same chain from the custodian bank to the clearinghouse to the broker all the way back to the stock seller or money receiver in this case. Of course, we won't get in depth into the whole process, but this is just an overview of the intermediaries chain in capital markets. Of course, with trading apps these days, smaller investors or just traders use such platforms to link directly to brokers instead of investment firms. This still does not do much to the length of the intermediaries chain. However, let's take a deeper look at the actual clearing and settlements process. This process involves three major steps. 1. Matching. 2. Clearing. And 3. Settlements. First, the matching process. Here, brokers and investment firms find security buyers and match them to sellers. If I want to buy US Treasury bonds, an example of a security, so long as I can get a broker, whether through an investment firm or through personal connections or through a trading app or company, the broker will find me someone owning the bonds who would like to sell and will then execute the trade on my behalf. Of course, for a fee. By now you should know that nothing comes free, and nothing could be less free than an intermediary. 2. Clearinghouses. Clearinghouses come in as intermediaries to make sure both parties of a trade, that is, the security seller and the security buyer, are paid or receive the security on a stipulated time. One thing you need to know is that the trading process takes time. Once you purchase a security, the security ownership has to be changed, and that by itself is a process that takes some days. However, no one wants to pay for a security and wait around 3 days before they receive it. Here, all the risk will be on the buyer. At the same time, no security seller wants to start changing the ownership of a security before they receive their money. If they did so, they'll be bearing the entire risk in case the buyer defaults the payments after the trade or ownership change is made. Clearinghouses therefore come in to create the missing trust between buyers and sellers of securities. These houses are in charge of the contract between the trading parties. This contract stipulates the date by which a security should have changed ownership to the buyer and the date all payments should be made. The houses also absorb any risk of default. In case any trading party does not pay up or does not issue the security, the house will pay back the affected party as per contract stipulations. This means that the clearing process is lengthy, as these houses have to take their time and verify that both parties are in a position to fulfill a deal before they absorb any risk by being the intermediary. Finally, the final step is settlements. Here, the clearinghouses settle security exchanges and payments for their trading parties as per the contract. Essentially, buyers and sellers get their deals fulfilled. For the seller, this means getting their cash as payment. And for the buyer, it is getting the ownership deeds of their security. Just from the explanation of the entire process, it is quite clear that the clearing process comes with its limitation. So what are some of the major challenges existent in such settlement structures? 1. Lengthy processes. As I stated before, clearing houses have to validate that trading parties are in a position to fulfill a deal. Any validation takes time, particularly when there's some risk involved. Clearing houses would not take up the risk of defaults unless they are sure that there's a little probability of a default occurring. Also, the process of security identity change and clearing contracts and deals still involves manual communication, making the process further slow and inefficient. 2. High costs. Anyone that absorbs risks definitely charges a lot to officiate a full transaction despite the inefficiencies. 3. The risk of default is still existent for clearing houses despite the guarantees and deposit parties have to make. While vetting of trading parties tries to minimize the occurrence of defaults, it does not take away the risk entirely. How exactly can blockchain be applied to the process? The two ways we'll explore are blockchain smart contracts and an open source decentralized ledger. You can see to your right a diagrammatic representation of a clearing and settlements model on blockchain courtesy of Accenture. Once again, the source or citation is on the resources section of this course. 1. Blockchain-based smart contracts. Blockchains allow for the creation of self-executing contracts that set terms of a transaction and effect the terms automatically. Therefore, manual guarantees involving emails, texts, and physical documents are replaced by smart contracts, thus allowing for real-time settlements. Instead of creating, sending, and signing contracts with trading parties and clearing houses, blockchain smart contracts allow for real-time settlements, since everything is automatic on the distributed ledger. Once a buyer pays up, the ownership of a security changes with immediate effect with the aid of an automated contract. Of course, on a secure, immutable, and highly transparent transactional ledger. Note, we've not yet discussed smart contracts, but this will be available in more advanced blockchain courses. See next steps for details. However, let's just look at a simple definition of a smart contract. What are blockchain-based smart contracts? A smart contract is a self-executing contract that is coded on top of a blockchain. Essentially, smart contracts contain traditional contract stipulations written in code, and once executed, the set terms are effected automatically. Example: think of an e-commerce smart contract. The contract can stipulate that money be taken out of a buyer's account and held temporarily and transferred to the seller once the goods are delivered. If not, the money is automatically transferred back to the buyer. It is in the same way that smart contracts can be employed in capital markets, only that this time it will be money for ownership of securities. The second important aspect of blockchain, key for its application in clearing and settlements, is its open source decentralized ledger. First, blockchain eliminates the middlemen in the clearing process and securities ownership of First, blockchain eliminates the middlemen in the clearing process, and securities ownership is stored on a decentralized ledger that is transparent to all involved parties. There's no need for clearing houses as intermediaries. Since blockchains link buyers and sellers directly, and transactional records are decentralized. In such a system, validation is done by every network participant digitally and automatically, and the process is officiated by a blockchain consensus protocol, further eliminating the need for clearing houses or any other intermediaries that conduct manual validations. So what are the advantages of decentralized ledger technology in clearing and settlements? 1. Transparency. All involved parties act as validators and access the decentralized ledger. Instead of giving all the authority to the clearing houses and custodian banks, a transparent decentralized ledger with protocol-governed validation and automated contracts ensures that trades are smooth and seamless, and that all players can trace a trade during the process as it is being executed on a decentralized ledger. 2. Efficiency. Transactional speed will improve from 3 days to near seconds because of fast, real-time settlements through smart contracts, and 2. Reduced number of third parties in security transactions. And lastly, easier and faster auditing, since all transactions are recorded real-time in an open-source decentralized database for auditors to easily access.